The stars above the outer colonies burned like frozen fire. Captain Elias Ward stood on the command deck of the human cruiser Resolute, staring at the impossible object drifting ahead of them in silence. It was enormous, larger than any battleship humanity had ever built. A black metallic sphere covered in glowing crimson lines, hanging in space like a watching eye. No engines, no weapons, no life signs, and yet every sensor aboard the Resolute screamed the same warning. Unknown threat level. Extreme. Distance. Elias asked quietly. 7,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Mara replied, her fingers trembling slightly over the console. Still no response to hails. The bridge remained silent except for the low hum of the ship's reactors. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 3 years ago. 3 years of insults. 3 years of being mocked as primitive war apes. 3 years of alien ambassadors smiling politely while secretly fearing humanity's rapid rise. Humans were new, unpredictable, dangerous. And tonight, something felt wrong. A transmission suddenly burst through the speakers. Static crackled. Then a cold artificial voice echoed across the bridge. Human vessel identified. Every crew member froze. Species classification, unstable. Council judgment authorized. Commencing final evaluation. Lieutenant Mara looked up sharply. Captain, what does that mean? Before Elias could answer, the black sphere moved. Not fast, not violently, but smoothly, like a predator waking from sleep. Massive crimson rings began rotating around its surface. Energy readings exploded across every monitor. Sir, shouted the tactical officer. That thing's powering weapons. Elias narrowed his eyes. This isn't first contact, he said slowly. It's an execution. The bridge erupted into motion. Raise shields. Battle stations. Signal the fleet. But it was already too late. The sphere opened. Not mechanically. The metal itself peeled apart like liquid darkness, revealing a burning red core brighter than a star. Then the beam came. A single line of crimson energy tore across space. The human destroyer escort Atlas vanished instantly. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Complete silence filled the bridge. 2,300 humans erased in less than a second. Lieutenant Mara whispered in horror. My God! And then the alien voice returned. Test phase 1 complete. Human emotional response confirmed. Proceeding to escalation. Captain Elias felt something cold settle inside him. Not fear. Not panic. Anger. The kind humanity had carried since the beginning of civilization. The kind that turned ordinary people into monsters when pushed too far. He opened a secure channel to all nearby human vessels. This is Captain Ward of the Resolute. His voice became deadly calm. We are under attack by unknown council technology. No negotiations. No surrender. A pause. Then he said the words that would later become legendary across the galaxy. They tested the wrong species. The crew looked at him. Not with fear anymore. With resolve. Human resolve. The black sphere began charging another shot. But this time the humans moved first. Launch everything, Elias ordered. Missiles exploded from the cruiser in massive waves. Railguns thundered. Plasma batteries lit the darkness like artificial suns. The alien construct didn't dodge. It simply endured. Explosions covered its surface. Yet when the fire vanished, not a single scratch remained. A chill ran across the bridge. Impossible, whispered Mara. Then suddenly every screen aboard the Resolute changed. A symbol appeared. The seal of the Galactic Council. And behind it, dozens of alien faces watched silently from a massive chamber. Council representatives. Observing. Studying. Judging. One of them finally spoke. A tall silver-skinned alien with glowing white eyes. Humanity, he said calmly, your species has demonstrated excessive aggression since joining the galactic community. Another alien leaned forward. You expand too quickly. You innovate too rapidly. You survive conflicts you should lose. A third smiled coldly. And frankly, you frighten us. Captain Elias stared at them in disbelief. You murdered my crew for an experiment. The silver alien answered without emotion. This is not murder. It is evaluation. We must determine whether humanity should be allowed to continue existing. Silence consumed the bridge. Every human aboard the Resolute understood the truth at the exact same moment. The Galactic Council had already made its decision. This test was never meant to judge humanity. It was meant to justify extermination. Then the sphere's core began glowing again. Brighter than before. Lieutenant Mara's face turned pale as sensor warnings screamed. Captain. They're charging something far bigger. Elias looked at the burning red light growing outside the viewport. Then he looked back at the alien counselors watching them like insects under glass. And he smiled. Not because he was unafraid, but because humanity had one terrifying trait the galaxy never understood. The more hopeless the battle became, the more dangerous humans became. Open a channel, Elias said softly. Mara hesitated. To the council. No, Elias replied. To Earth. The bridge fell silent. Then he gave the order that would change galactic history forever. Tell humanity. The war has begun. Earth did not panic. That was the first thing the Galactic Council failed to understand. When Captain Elias Ward's transmission reached humanity, the Council expected chaos. Fear. Collapse. Civil unrest. Instead, Earth became silent. Dangerously silent. Deep beneath the mountains of Geneva, inside humanity's Unified Defense Command, hundreds of military officers stared at the holographic footage from the Resolute. The Black Sphere. The destruction of the Atlas. The Council representatives calmly discussing genocide. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Admiral Sophia Reyes folded her hands behind her back and asked the most terrifying question possible. How long until retaliation? A young officer swallowed hard. First Fleet mobilization already underway. Another officer looked up from his console. Martian shipyards activating wartime production. Lunar defense grid online. Outer colonies requesting permission to engage Council assets. Sophia nodded once. No panic. No debate. Only preparation. Because humanity had spent centuries surviving impossible situations. World wars. Economic collapse. Artificial plagues. Climate disasters. Civil conflicts. Human beings adapted to horror faster than any species in known space. And now the galaxy was about to learn why. Meanwhile, inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was far less confident. Thousands of alien delegates watched the battle through enormous holographic projections. The black execution sphere floated before the damaged human cruiser. Yet something about the humans felt wrong. A reptilian counselor narrowed his yellow eyes. Why are they not begging? Another clicked his mandibles nervously. Their psychological profile predicted emotional breakdown. The silver-skinned ambassador, Counselor Varel, remained calm. Humans are emotional creatures, he said confidently. Aggressive species collapse under sufficient pressure. But hidden among the delegates sat one alien who looked genuinely afraid. Ambassador Sarin of the Thalary Union. Unlike the others, the Thalary had studied humanity carefully. Too carefully. Sarin remembered the classified reports. Human soldiers continuing to fight after losing limbs. Human colonies rebuilding days after planetary disasters. Humans sacrificing themselves simply to protect strangers. The reports all ended with the same warning. Humans are at their most dangerous when cornered. Sarin stood suddenly. This test must end immediately. The chamber murmured in confusion. Counselor Varel looked annoyed. Explain yourself. You do not understand what you are provoking, Sarin replied. A tall insectoid counselor hissed mockingly. They are primitives with kinetic weapons. They split atoms for warfare barely 2 centuries ago. They are infants. Sarin turned toward the massive projection of Captain Elias standing calmly on the bridge of the Resolute. No, Saren whispered. They are survivors. But the council ignored him, because arrogance had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The oldest races believed themselves untouchable. Humanity was merely another young species to control. Another civilization to dominate before it grew too powerful. Councillor Varel raised one hand. Proceed to Phase 2. Far away in deep space, the black sphere obeyed instantly. Its crimson core expanded. Space itself began warping around it. Warning alarms screamed aboard the Resolute. Lieutenant Mara's face turned white. Captain, energy levels are off the scale. What is it doing? The ship's AI answered before Elias could. Unknown gravitational weapon detected. Projected impact radius, planetary. The bridge fell silent. Planetary. Not ship-to-ship warfare. Not military targeting. Extermination. Elias clenched his jaw. They're going to destroy the colony. Behind the sphere floated New Carthage, a human world with 12 million civilians. Families. Children. Entire cities. The council wasn't testing humanity anymore. They were making an example. And suddenly, every human aboard the Resolute understood something important. The galaxy feared humanity not because humans were violent, but because humans valued life so fiercely that they would become monsters to protect it. Elias activated the fleet-wide channel again. All ships prepare for intercept. Mara stared at him in shock. Captain, that weapon will vaporize us. I know. That's suicide. Elias looked out at the colony world behind the alien sphere. Then he answered quietly. Maybe. The crew exchanged glances. No one objected. Not one. Because they were human. And humans had always stood between danger and the innocent, even when it killed them. The Resolute accelerated first. Then the frigates followed. Then the carriers. A wall of human ships surged toward the glowing sphere. Every alarm aboard every vessel screamed certain death. Yet none of them slowed down. Inside the council chamber, confusion spread rapidly. They're charging directly into the weapon. Why? That makes no tactical sense. Ambassador Saren closed his eyes. Because he already knew the answer. Humans would rather die fighting than live kneeling. The black sphere fired. A massive crimson wave erupted outward like a collapsing star. And the human fleet flew directly into it. For one horrifying second, space itself disappeared in red light. Then silence consumed the battlefield. The council chamber erupted in celebration. They are gone. The fleet is destroyed. Humanity is finished. But Ambassador Saren stared at the projection with growing horror. Because the sensors were still detecting human signals. The red light slowly faded. And there they were. Damaged. Burning. Falling apart. But still moving. The human fleet had used their own ships as shields. Entire cruisers sacrificed themselves to absorb the blast before it reached the colony. Millions of civilians survived because thousands of human soldiers chose death without hesitation. The council delegates stopped cheering. Fear spread across the chamber. Not because humanity survived, but because no species was supposed to willingly do that. Captain Elias appeared again on the hologram, blood running down one side of his face. The bridge behind him burned. Half his crew was dead. Yet his eyes remained steady. And then he spoke directly to the Galactic Council. You think compassion makes us weak. His voice echoed through the silent chamber. But compassion is exactly why you should fear us. Then Earth's response fleet arrived. Over 3,000 human warships emerged from hyperspace at once. And for the very first time in galactic history, the Galactic Council felt fear. The arrival of the human fleet changed everything. Space itself seemed to tremble as thousands of warships emerged from hyperspace around New Carthage. Massive carriers, heavy cruisers, missile destroyers, black stealth frigates. Ships so numerous they covered entire sections of the stars. The Galactic Council chamber fell into stunned silence. One delegate whispered nervously. How many ships is that? Councillor Varel's expression darkened as tactical data flooded the holograms. 3,241 confirmed vessels. The number alone shocked the chamber. Humanity was supposed to be a young species. New civilizations weren't supposed to possess fleets this large. But the worst part wasn't the fleet itself. It was how fast it had arrived. A military analyst suddenly shouted from the lower chamber. Impossible. All eyes turned toward him. The humans crossed nearly 8 sectors in less than 30 minutes. Murmurs exploded across the council. That distance should have taken days. Even the oldest alien empires couldn't move fleets that quickly. Councillor Varel slowly looked toward Ambassador Sarin. You knew. Sarin didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the projection of Earthships surrounding the battlefield. Finally, he spoke quietly. The humans never stopped preparing for war. Far away, aboard Earth's flagship Vanguard, Fleet Admiral Sophia Reyes stood in absolute silence while officers relayed battlefield reports around her. The bridge was enormous. Cold steel walls. Rows of holographic battle maps. Thousands of blinking red enemy markers. And directly ahead, the black execution sphere. Sophia studied it carefully. Casualty report. An officer lowered his head. 7,400 dead from the first attack. Another added quietly. Civilian losses prevented due to sacrifice maneuver by Captain Ward's fleet. Sophia closed her eyes for 1 second. Only one. Then she opened them again. Focused. Sharp. Dangerous. Status of Captain Ward. Still operational. The Resolute is heavily damaged. Good. Her gaze shifted toward the hologram of the council chamber. The alien delegates were still watching. Still judging. Still arrogant enough to think they controlled the situation. Sophia's voice became ice. They wanted to test humanity. A pause. Now humanity tests them. Orders exploded across the fleet instantly. Railgun batteries charged. Missile silos opened. Electronic warfare systems flooded nearby space with interference. The black sphere reacted immediately. Its crimson rings rotated faster, glowing brighter with terrifying energy. Yet this time, the humans weren't afraid. Because humanity's greatest strength had never been technology. It had never been numbers. It was adaptation. Every war in human history had taught the same lesson. If something couldn't be destroyed, humans would eventually find a way. A tactical officer pointed toward the sphere. Enemy weapon charging again. Sophia nodded calmly. Pattern analysis. The AI responded instantly. The sphere requires a 4.2-second energy concentration window before firing. Predictive weak points identified. A new hologram appeared. Tiny fractures of instability around the sphere's crimson core. Small, brief, but real. Sophia smiled slightly. There you are. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, panic slowly began spreading. They're analyzing the sphere. That technology is millions of years beyond them. Councillor Varel slammed his hand against the podium. Impossible. But humanity had always excelled at impossible things. That was the problem. The human fleet suddenly split apart in perfect synchronization. Entire formations moved with terrifying precision. Thousands of ships repositioned around the sphere from every angle. The alien delegates stared in confusion. What are they doing? Ambassador Sarin answered softly. Hunting. Then the attack began. Human ships fired simultaneously. Not randomly. Not chaotically. Perfectly coordinated. Missiles struck first, not to damage the sphere, but to overload its defenses. Nuclear detonations blinded its sensors. Electronic interference disrupted targeting systems. Then came the railguns. Thousands of tungsten rounds accelerated to relativistic speeds hammered the sphere from every direction. Still, the sphere endured. Its shields flickered violently but held. Councillor Varel laughed suddenly. You see? Human desperation changes nothing. But Admiral Sophia Reyes remained calm. Phase 2. A single stealth ship uncloaked directly beneath the sphere. Small. Fast. Nearly invisible. The alien construct reacted instantly, charging weapons toward it. Too late. The stealth vessel released something tiny into space. A metal cylinder no larger than a human coffin. The council chamber frowned in confusion. That's their weapon. Sophia's eyes narrowed. No. That's the key. The cylinder activated. A pulse rippled outward silently. And suddenly the crimson glow around the sphere flickered for half a second. Just half a second. But that was enough. The human fleet fired everything. Thousands of concentrated railgun strikes slammed into the exposed core simultaneously. The black sphere cracked. For the first time since its creation, the ancient alien weapon took damage. The council chamber exploded into chaos. No! How did they breach it? That technology should be invulnerable. Ambassador Sarin whispered the truth none of them wanted to hear. Nothing is invulnerable to humans. The sphere began collapsing internally. Crimson energy burst from massive fractures across its surface. Warning alarms echoed across the alien chamber. And then something unexpected happened. The sphere transmitted a signal. Not to the humans. To the council itself. A cold artificial voice echoed through the chamber. Evaluation complete. The delegates froze. Then the AI spoke the words that shattered the galaxy forever. Conclusion. Humanity represents an extinction-level threat. Silence. Absolute silence. Then every human ship received the same transmission moments later. The sphere's final message. One sentence. One horrifying sentence. Additional council extermination fleets already en route to Earth. Captain Elias stared at the message aboard the burning Resolute. Then slowly looked toward Admiral Sophia's fleet. Humanity finally understood the truth. This was never a border conflict. Never a misunderstanding. The Galactic Council had already decided humanity must die. And now, humanity was going to answer. Admiral Sophia Reyes gave one final order. A simple order, but one that would soon ignite the largest war in galactic history. Set course for the Council core worlds. Her officers looked at her carefully. Sophia's expression never changed. If they want extinction, we'll show them how humans wage war. The galaxy had seen wars before. Thousands of them. Alien empires had clashed for territory, resources, politics, religion, even pride. But those wars followed rules, limits, logic. Humanity's war did not. 3 days after the attack on New Carthage, the Galactic Council lost contact with Outpost Karos. At first, the Council assumed it was a communications failure. Then another station vanished. Then another. And another. Entire military checkpoints across Council space simply disappeared from the galactic network. No distress calls. No survivors. Only silence. Inside the Grand Council chamber, panic spread faster each hour. Councillor Varel slammed both hands onto the central podium. Find them. A frightened tactical officer stepped forward. We're trying, sir. Human fleet movements are impossible to predict. How? They don't follow standard military doctrine. That answer only made things worse. Because alien warfare had remained unchanged for centuries. Ships formed battle lines. Fleets protected supply routes. Wars advanced sector by sector. Humanity ignored all of it. They attacked everywhere at once. Small human strike groups appeared deep inside enemy territory without warning. They sabotaged shipyards, destroyed communication arrays, captured fuel depots, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. To the council races, it felt less like a war, and more like being hunted by something intelligent hiding in the dark. Meanwhile, aboard the human stealth carrier Nightfall, Captain Elias Ward stood inside the tactical chamber studying holographic maps. The injuries across his face still hadn't healed. Neither had the anger in his eyes. Commander Jin approached carefully. Sir, the council fleet near Valtar Prime is repositioning. Elias nodded. Good. They think we're targeting the capital. Jin hesitated. Aren't we? A faint smile crossed Elias's face. No. He pointed toward another location far beyond the main battle zones. A glowing red marker appeared. Their food production worlds. Jin looked confused for a moment. Then realization hit him. If we cut supply chains, their fleet starve, Elias finished calmly. This was what terrified the galaxy most about humans. They adapted too quickly. Alien species often relied on tradition. Humans relied on results. Every mistake became a lesson. Every defeat became fuel. And the Galactic Council was learning that in real time. Far away on Earth, billions watched the war unfold across every screen, every city, every colony. But instead of fear, humanity united. Factories operated 24 hours a day. Civilian cargo pilots volunteered for military supply missions. Retired veterans returned to service. Even teenagers lied about their age to enlist. For the first time in centuries, humanity moved as one species. Not divided by nations. Not divided by language. Only united by one truth. The galaxy wanted them extinct. And humans refused to die quietly. Back inside the council chamber, Ambassador Saren watched the newest reports with growing horror. Human forces destroyed 6 major supply worlds. Council casualty estimates exceed 40 million. Trade routes collapsing. Delegates shouted over one another in panic. They are targeting civilians now. This is barbaric. They are monsters. Saren turned slowly toward them. Monsters. His voice echoed sharply through the chamber. You attempted genocide first. Silence fell instantly. Councillor Varel glared at him. We sought containment. No, Saren replied coldly. You sought control. The chamber darkened as a massive hologram suddenly appeared above the delegates. A live battlefield feed. The planet Valtar Prime. One of the Council's richest core worlds. And directly above it, the human fleet. Thousands of warships blocked out the stars. Citizens across the planet panicked as enormous shadows crossed their skies. Councillor Varel's face paled. How did they reach the core so quickly? No one answered. Because nobody understood human hyperspace technology anymore. Human engineers had begun modifying drives during the war itself. Improving them faster than alien scientists could study them. Human innovation during conflict bordered on insanity. On the surface of Valtar Prime, civilians flooded evacuation centers while planetary defenses prepared to fire. But Admiral Sophia Reyes gave a surprising order. Hold fire. Her officers looked stunned. She stared down at the planet below. We are not exterminators. The bridge fell silent. Sophia activated an open planetary transmission. Her face appeared across every screen on Valtar Prime. Calm, cold, controlled. Citizens of Valtar Prime, she began. The Galactic Council declared humanity an extinction threat. They murdered civilians. They attempted planetary annihilation. Her eyes hardened. We are giving you one chance the Council never gave us. Evacuate your military infrastructure. Surrender your orbital weapons. And live. Across the Council chamber, furious delegates erupted instantly. She's bluffing. Humans don't show mercy. But Ambassador Saren knew better. Humanity could be merciful. That was the terrifying part. Because when humans finally stopped offering mercy, nothing survived. Then planetary defense cannons fired at the human fleet. Without warning. Without negotiation. Councillor Varel smiled viciously. They chose war. Admiral Sophia watched the incoming fire silently. Then she gave the order. Disable military targets only. Human ships moved instantly. Precision railgun strikes shattered orbital cannons. Stealth drones infiltrated defense grids. EMP warheads blacked out military sectors. Entire fortresses collapsed within minutes. But civilian cities remained untouched. The council delegates stared in disbelief. They're avoiding population centers. Why? Sophia answered through the transmission, as if she could hear them. Because humanity fights enemies. Not children. And in that exact moment, millions across the galaxy began questioning who the real monsters were. But the war was far from over. Because deep beyond Council space, something ancient had awakened. Something even the Galactic Council feared. And it had finally noticed humanity. At the edge of known space, a colossal shadow moved between the stars. Watching, waiting, smiling. Far beyond the borders of civilized space. Beyond trade routes. Beyond colonies. Beyond even the oldest star maps of the Galactic Council. Something moved in the darkness. Ancient ships the size of moons drifted silently through dead sectors where no star still burned. Their black hulls carried scars older than recorded history, covered in symbols no living species could translate. For thousands of years, the galaxy believed these beings were myths. Ghosts from forgotten ages. Stories used to frighten young civilizations. But the stories were true. And now, they were awake. Inside the deepest chamber of the Council Citadel, emergency alarms echoed endlessly as frightened delegates argued in complete panic. Councillor Varel looked exhausted for the first time in decades. Human fleets continue advancing toward the core worlds. Outer defensive lines are collapsing. Civil unrest spreading across 27 sectors. Another delegate shouted, "Then deploy the ancients." The entire chamber fell silent instantly. Even speaking about them openly felt forbidden. Ambassador Sarin slowly turned. "You would unleash them? What choice do we have?" Varel snapped. "They erased half our military infrastructure in less than a week." A reptilian counselor hissed nervously. "The humans adapt too quickly. Their reverse engineering captured technology already." Another added quietly, "If this continues, humanity may surpass us." Those words terrified the Council more than war itself. Because the Galactic Council had not ruled through wisdom. It ruled through superiority, control, fear, and humanity threatened all three. Finally, Varel made his decision. Activate the Obsidian Pact. Across the chamber, several delegates visibly trembled. Because the Obsidian Pact was never supposed to be used again. Thousands of years earlier, the Council had encountered an ancient species so advanced it bordered on godlike. The Dravari, a civilization older than most stars in the galactic core. The Dravari didn't conquer worlds. They erased civilizations entirely. Cold, efficient, absolute. The Council had barely survived their first encounter long ago and only escaped extinction by signing a horrifying agreement. The Dravari would remain outside civilized space. And in exchange, the Council would offer tribute and obedience whenever summoned. For centuries, the pact remained hidden. A shameful secret buried beneath galactic politics. Until now, Varel activated the ancient beacon. A single pulse vanished into deep space. Then the chamber waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then every light inside the citadel suddenly died. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Several delegates panicked. What's happening? And then, a voice spoke from everywhere at once. Ancient, mechanical, inhuman. You call upon the Dravari. The air itself felt heavier. A massive hologram slowly formed above the chamber. At first it looked humanoid. Then the details became clear. Black metallic skin. Burning silver eyes. Towering armor fused directly into flesh. Not alive. Not machine. Something worse. The delegates bowed immediately. Even Varel lowered his head. Great Dravari, he said carefully. The Council requests assistance against a hostile species. The silver eyes narrowed. Designation. Varel hesitated only briefly. Humanity. Silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. The Dravari figure leaned forward slightly. Interested. Humans. Its voice changed subtly. Almost curious. How many worlds do they possess? Only 43 major colonies, Varel answered quickly. And yet you fail to destroy them. No one replied. Because the truth was humiliating. A young species was defeating civilizations thousands of years older than itself. The Dravari stared silently for several moments. Then finally asked the question that chilled the chamber. Have humans entered desperation phase? Ambassador Saren's blood ran cold. Because he understood exactly what that meant. Varel frowned. What? The Dravari's silver eyes glowed brighter. All intelligent predators possess evolutionary states. Fear. Aggression. Survival. But humans. The creature paused. Become most lethal during extinction conditions. Several delegates exchanged nervous glances. Even the Dravari sounded cautious. Varel quickly interrupted. They are still primitive. They rely on kinetic weapons and emotional decision-making. The Dravari became silent again. Then slowly, it laughed. A horrible metallic sound that echoed across the chamber like grinding steel. Primitive species do not threaten galactic empires. The hologram suddenly shifted. New images appeared. Human battle footage. Earth factories. Human soldiers rescuing civilians under fire. Engineers modifying warships during active combat. Destroyed council fleets. The Dravari had already been studying humanity, and what it saw clearly disturbed it. Interesting. The creature whispered. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Vanguard, Admiral Sophia Reyes received an emergency intelligence report from deep space reconnaissance probes. Her officers looked pale. We found something. A holographic image appeared above the bridge. Massive black structures drifting through empty space. Moon-sized vessels. Thousands of them. Sophia narrowed her eyes. Unknown faction. No records exist, the officer answered. But there's more. Another image appeared. Ancient ruins on dead planets. Entire civilizations erased. Not conquered. Not occupied. Simply wiped away. Captain Elias stepped closer to the display. Whoever did this was hunting. The AI responded immediately. Probability of hostile intent, 99.7%. Sophia folded her arms. Of course. As if the galaxy itself wasn't dangerous enough already. Then a transmission suddenly appeared on every human ship simultaneously. No encryption. No origin point. Only a black screen. And silver eyes glowing in the darkness. The Dravari had arrived. The voice echoed across every bridge. Humanity. You interest us. The crews aboard dozens of ships froze. Not from fear. From instinct. Every human present felt the same thing deep inside their bones. Predator. The Dravari continued speaking. Your species survives beyond statistical certainty. You evolve through conflict. You refuse submission. A pause. Then the ancient voice became colder. Therefore, you cannot be allowed to continue. Warning alarms exploded across the Vanguard. Thousands of unknown contacts suddenly appeared around the edges of human-controlled space. Entire stars vanished behind colossal black ships emerging from hyperspace. Captain Elias stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Dravari fleet wasn't merely large. It was civilization ending. And then the silver-eyed figure spoke one final sentence. A sentence that sent chills across humanity itself. Now. Show us how humans die. For the first time since the war began, humanity started losing. Not battles. Entire worlds. The Dravari fleet advanced like a force of nature, unstoppable and merciless. Their colossal black ships ignored conventional physics, phasing through defensive fire while unleashing beams capable of splitting continents apart. The colony world of Haven burned for 11 straight hours before all contact vanished. Then Arcadia fell. Then Titan Station. Every defeat sent shockwaves across human space. Billions watched cities disappear in pillars of white fire. Entire oceans boiled beneath Dravari bombardments. Nothing slowed them. Nothing frightened them. And worst of all, nothing seemed to hurt them. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, terrified delegates watched the destruction unfold across massive holographic displays. At first, some celebrated. The humans were finally being crushed. But that celebration faded quickly. Because the Dravari weren't only targeting humanity anymore. They destroyed everything in their path. Council fleets, trade stations, neutral systems, even worlds loyal to the Council itself. Councillor Varel stood in disbelief. This wasn't the agreement. The silver-eyed Dravari hologram appeared above the chamber once more. You requested extermination. Varel swallowed nervously. Of humanity. The Dravari stared down at him without emotion. Resistance spreads through association. Contamination must be removed entirely. Several delegates panicked instantly. They're cleansing whole sectors. We must stop them. But Ambassador Sarin already knew the truth. No one controlled the Dravari. The Council had unleashed something far worse than humanity. And now the galaxy itself was paying the price. Meanwhile, deep beneath Earth's surface, humanity's leadership gathered inside the underground fortress known as Bastion Zero. The room felt heavier than ever before. Casualty numbers covered every screen. Dead colonies. Destroyed fleets. Civilian evacuations. Admiral Sofia Reyes stood silently at the center table while exhausted officers argued around her. We can't stop them conventionally. Our fleets are collapsing. They're heading toward the Sol system. A younger commander finally said the words nobody wanted to hear. We may need surrender negotiations. The room became silent. Sophia slowly turned toward him. Surrender. The commander hesitated. We're running out of options. Sophia walked toward the massive holographic projection of Earth. Blue oceans. White clouds. 8 billion human lives. Then she spoke quietly. The Dravari don't want surrender. They want extinction. No one argued, because everyone knew she was right. Humanity was not fighting for victory anymore. It was fighting for survival. And humans became most dangerous when survival was threatened. Far away near the destroyed remains of Haven Colony, Captain Elias Ward floated through wreckage aboard a damaged Recon vessel. The stars around him were filled with broken ships and frozen bodies. Human, alien, civilian, military. The Dravari had slaughtered all of them equally. Commander Jin stared at the devastation in horror. There's nothing left. Elias remained silent. Then his sensors detected something strange. A weak signal buried beneath the debris. Life signs. Unknown. The Recon ship moved carefully through the wreckage until finally they found it. A Dravari vessel. Destroyed. Jin's eyes widened. That's impossible. No human fleet had ever destroyed one. Yet this ship had clearly been torn apart from the inside. Elias narrowed his eyes. Boarding team. Minutes later, they entered the ruined vessel cautiously. The interior looked nothing like human technology. Dark metallic corridors twisted like living structures. Walls pulsed faintly, almost organic. And everywhere, bodies. Dead Dravari soldiers scattered across the halls. But something was wrong. Their armor wasn't breached by weapons. It looked melted, burned outward from inside their own bodies. Jin whispered nervously. What killed them? Then a voice answered from the darkness. Fear. Human soldiers instantly raised weapons. A figure slowly stepped forward. Tall, silver-eyed, Dravari, but wounded. Its armor cracked open across one side of its chest. Elias aimed directly at its head. Talk. The Dravari studied him silently, then said something no human expected. We underestimated your species. Jin frowned. You're losing. The alien actually smiled slightly. No, but for the first time in millennia. We are uncertain. Elias's eyes narrowed. Why? The Dravari looked around at its dead comrades. Because humans break prediction. The creature walked slowly toward a shattered wall overlooking the stars. Our species conquered the galaxy long before your ancestors discovered fire. We studied every form of intelligence. Every civilization follows patterns eventually. It turned back toward Elias. Except humanity. The silence became heavy. Then the Dravari revealed the truth. The Council feared your aggression. But they misunderstood. Its silver eyes locked onto Elias. Your true strength is emotional adaptation. Loss strengthens humans. Fear sharpens humans. Extinction conditions unite humans. Jin looked confused. So, the Dravari's voice became quieter. So your species evolves psychologically during crisis. Even Elias felt chills hearing that. Because it was true. Every attack against humanity had only made humans more determined, more innovative, more united. The Dravari continued. That makes you dangerous beyond calculation. Suddenly alarms screamed across the Recon vessel. Incoming transmission from Earth. Sophia Reyes appeared on screen immediately. Her face was grim. Captain Ward. We found a weakness. Elias straightened instantly. What kind of weakness? Sophia hesitated only briefly, then answered. The Dravari aren't invading us. They're running from something. Silence filled the ruined alien ship. Even the wounded Dravari froze. For the first time since humanity encountered them. One of the ancient beings looked afraid. Then every system aboard the vessel erupted with warning alarms. A deep signal echoed across space itself. Massive. Ancient. Hungry. The wounded Dravari whispered only one word. No. And somewhere far beyond the edge of the galaxy, something far older than the Dravari opened its eyes. The signal spread across the galaxy like a heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Ancient. Every ship, human, council, and Dravari alike, detected it at the exact same moment. Sensors failed trying to measure its source. Long-range arrays overloaded instantly. And then the stars began disappearing. Not exploding. Not collapsing. Disappearing. Entire systems vanished into darkness as if something enormous was moving between them. Inside Bastion Zero beneath Earth, military officers stared at the tactical displays in stunned silence. One trembling analyst whispered, "That's not possible." The hologram zoomed outward toward deep space. A wave of blackness consumed entire sectors. Anything touched by it simply ceased transmitting forever. No distress calls. No debris. Nothing. Admiral Sophia Reyes looked toward the wounded Dravari prisoner being held under heavy guard nearby. You know what this is. The silver-eyed alien remained silent for several seconds. Then finally spoke. The End Swarm. Even saying the name seemed painful. Captain Elias frowned. You're telling me something wiped out a species like yours? The Dravari turned slowly toward him. No species survives the swarm. A cold feeling spread across the command center. The Dravari continued quietly. We were not conquering the galaxy. We were preparing it. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Preparing it for what? The alien's answer chilled every human in the room. To burn. Silence followed. Then the Dravari explained the truth hidden for millions of years. Long before the Galactic Council existed. Long before most intelligent life evolved. The swarm arrived from outside the galaxy. Not biological. Not mechanical. Something worse. An endlessly consuming intelligence spreading across stars like cosmic locusts. Civilizations fought it. Failed. The Dravari became the last species powerful enough to resist. So they created an impossible strategy. Destroy developing civilizations before they became large enough to attract the swarm's attention. Genocide as containment. Extinction as survival. That was the real reason the Dravari erased worlds. Not cruelty. Fear. The council chamber received the same information moments later, and panic erupted instantly. Councillor Varel looked horrified. You never told us this. The Dravari hologram appeared again. You were not meant to know. Delegates shouted over one another. You sacrificed trillions. You murdered civilizations. To save yourselves. The hologram's silver eyes glowed brighter. To save existence. Meanwhile, human scientists rapidly analyzed incoming data from the approaching darkness. The results were horrifying. The swarm wasn't using ships. The darkness itself was alive. An ocean of microscopic entities consuming energy, matter, even radiation. Entire stars were being devoured like sparks in a storm. Commander Jin stared at the calculations. At current speed. He stopped speaking. Sophia finished for him. It reaches Earth in 12 days. Silence crushed the room. 12 days. Humanity had spent weeks fighting the Council and the Dravari. Now something infinitely worse was coming. Captain Elias looked toward the wounded Dravari. "You've fought this thing before." "Yes." "And?" The alien's expression became hollow. "We lost." For the first time since the war began, genuine fear spread across humanity. Not fear of death. Fear that nothing they did would matter. That the galaxy itself was already doomed. But then something unexpected happened. A civilian transmission reached Bastion Zero from Earth. Then another. And another. Millions of messages flooding military channels simultaneously. Volunteers. Engineers. Scientists. Pilots. Ordinary people offering anything they could. Humanity was reacting the same way it always had. By refusing to give up. Sophia watched the endless flood of messages silently. A small smile appeared on her face for the first time in weeks. The Dravari prisoner noticed. "You still believe you can survive?" Sophia turned toward him. "Yes." The alien looked genuinely confused. "Why?" Captain Elias answered before she could. "Because humans are stupid enough to try." Several exhausted officers laughed quietly despite the situation. And somehow, that laughter changed the atmosphere inside the room. The Dravari stared at them carefully. At their exhaustion. Their fear. Their determination. Then the ancient alien realized something terrifying. Humans weren't strong because they lacked fear. They were strong because fear never stopped them. Sophia activated the central command display. Every species in the galaxy has been fighting alone. A massive hologram of known space appeared. Human fleets. Council fleets. Even surviving Dravari forces. Separated. Divided. Dying individually. Sophia pointed toward the approaching darkness. "That thing wins because we keep acting like separate civilizations." Councillor Varel appeared through holographic transmission from the Citadel. "You expect cooperation after everything that's happened?" Sophia's expression hardened. "No. I expect survival instincts." Silence filled every connected chamber across the galaxy. Then the wounded Dravari spoke unexpectedly. "There may be one possibility." All eyes turned toward him. The alien hesitated, as if even saying the idea felt impossible. Then finally, "The swarm adapts to logic." Elias frowned. "What does that mean?" "It predicts." The Dravari's silver eyes locked onto the humans. "It calculates fear. It understands strategy. It consumes civilizations because intelligent species become predictable during extinction." Sophia slowly realized where this was going. "But humans?" The alien nodded once. "You are irrational." A faint smile appeared on Elias's face. "That's probably the nicest thing anyone's said about us." The Dravari ignored the joke. "For millions of years, we searched for a species the swarm could not predict." Its gaze hardened. "We believe that species may be humanity." The room fell silent again. Not with fear this time. With realization. The galaxy's oldest monsters. The beings that terrified entire civilizations. Were placing their final hope in humans. Then the alarm screamed. The darkness had accelerated. Entire sectors vanished in seconds. And from the edge of known space, a voice echoed across every transmission channel simultaneously. "Cold. Infinite. Hungry. Biological resistance detected. Commencing final consumption." The stars themselves began going dark. And humanity prepared for the last battle in galactic history. The end of the galaxy began in silence. No explosions. No grand speeches. Only darkness spreading across the stars faster than light itself. Entire civilizations vanished within hours. Ancient empires that had ruled for millions of years disappeared without leaving behind even dust. The swarm consumed everything. Energy. Matter. Signals. hope. And now it was approaching Earth. Inside Bastion Zero, every remaining leader of every surviving species gathered together for the first time in galactic history. Humans, council delegates, Dravari war commanders, enemies standing side by side because extinction no longer cared about politics. A giant hologram of the galaxy flickered weakly above the chamber. Nearly half of known space had already gone dark. Admiral Sophia Reyes stared at the map silently. We don't have enough ships to stop it directly. Councillor Varel lowered his head in shame. The council fleets are shattered. One of the Dravari commanders spoke coldly. Probability of survival remains below 1%. Captain Elias leaned against the command table, exhausted but focused. Then we stop thinking like normal civilizations. The room looked toward him. And slowly, a dangerous smile appeared across Sophia's face. Because humanity had finally realized something important. The swarm predicted logic. It predicted fear. It predicted survival patterns. But humans? Humans were chaos. For thousands of years, alien races viewed humanity's emotional nature as weakness. Now it became the galaxy's greatest weapon. Sophia activated the battle plan. The room immediately erupted into confusion. That's insane. It will never work. You'll destroy entire fleets. Elias nodded calmly. Exactly. The plan was pure madness, which was precisely why the swarm wouldn't predict it. Instead of retreating toward Earth defensively, humanity ordered every remaining fleet to advance directly into swarm territory. Not carefully, not strategically, aggressively, wildly. Human ships carried experimental drives never fully tested. Weapons built only days earlier. Prototype reactors with catastrophic failure rates. No civilization would risk using unstable technology during extinction. Humans used all of it at once. Because when cornered, humanity stopped fearing failure. Across Earth, civilians watched the final fleets preparing to leave orbit. Millions gathered in silence beneath the night sky. Families held each other. Children waved at ships disappearing into the heavens. No one knew if humanity would survive. But humanity had accepted something long ago. Being afraid never meant surrendering. Inside the massive combined fleet, Dravari commanders watched humans in complete disbelief. One alien officer pointed toward a human engineering crew literally modifying reactor systems during active launch procedures. They're altering core designs now. The human engineer shrugged casually. Got a better idea. The Dravari were horrified. Humans treated impossible situations like engineering problems. And somehow, it kept working. The final fleet entered hyperspace. Tens of thousands of vessels surged directly toward the advancing darkness. At the center of the armada flew the vanguard. Admiral Sophia stood beside Captain Elias on the bridge while stars distorted around them. You ever think we'd end up saving the galaxy? Elias asked quietly. Sophia smirked faintly. I was hoping for retirement instead. Then alarms erupted. The swarm had arrived. The view screen turned black. Not metaphorically. Actually black. An ocean of living darkness stretched across space infinitely, swallowing starlight itself. And within it, shapes moved. Massive entities larger than planets forming briefly inside the void before dissolving again. The crew fell silent. Even hardened soldiers stared in horror. The swarm's voice echoed across every mind simultaneously. Resistance is illogical. Existence will be absorbed. Sophia stepped forward. Then she answered with the most human response possible. Yay! Watch us anyway. The fleet charged. The final battle of the galaxy exploded into existence. Human ships accelerated directly into the darkness while Dravari vessels unleashed planet-cracking beams beside them. Council fleets fired everything they had remaining. At first, nothing worked. The swarm consumed missiles, absorbed lasers, devoured entire ships. But then humanity's unpredictability began breaking its calculations. Human pilots intentionally overloaded drives to create uncontrolled hyperspace ruptures. Engineers detonated unstable reactors inside the swarm itself. Damaged ships rammed directly into the darkness while transmitting targeting data seconds before destruction. Every action contradicted logical warfare. Every sacrifice created chaos. And chaos confused the swarm. For the first time in billions of years, the cosmic intelligence hesitated. The Dravari noticed immediately. It's losing prediction stability. Sophia's eyes sharpened. Push harder. Humanity obeyed instantly. Not because victory was guaranteed, but because humans had always been willing to fight impossible battles simply because someone had to. The swarm's movements became erratic. Its consumption patterns fractured. Entire sections of darkness collapsed inward violently. Then Captain Elias saw the opening. A tiny instability forming deep within the swarm's core. Target locked. Sophia understood immediately. This is it. One chance. One final strike. Every surviving human ship redirected power simultaneously. Not to shields. Not to escape drives. To weapons. The combined energy nearly tore the fleet apart. The swarm realized the danger instantly. Outcome deviation detected. Impossible. Elias smiled grimly. That's humanity for you. Then the fleet fired. A beam brighter than stars themselves pierced the darkness and struck the swarm's unstable core directly. For one endless moment, the universe went silent. Then the darkness screamed. Entire sectors lit up as the swarm collapsed inward, consuming itself in a chain reaction spreading across the galaxy. Stars reappeared. Light returned. The endless black ocean began dying. And suddenly, it was over. The swarm was gone. Silence filled the shattered battlefield. Thousands of wrecked ships drifted through the stars. The cost had been unimaginable, but the galaxy still existed. Slowly, transmissions began arriving from surviving worlds across known space. Cheers, crying, disbelief. Humanity had done what no civilization ever had. They stopped the end. Days later, representatives from every surviving species gathered above Earth. Not as rulers, not as enemies, but as survivors. Councillor Varel stood before humanity's leaders and lowered his head deeply. The Galactic Council was wrong. Ambassador Serin smiled faintly. We feared humanity because you were different. The wounded Dravari commander stepped forward last. Silver eyes glowing softly. For millions of years we searched for a species capable of defeating extinction. Its gaze settled on Earth below. We found humanity. Captain Elias looked out toward the stars quietly, then answered with a tired smile. Next time. Maybe just ask for help first. The chamber erupted with exhausted laughter. And for the first time in galactic history, the galaxy no longer saw humanity as monsters. They saw them as the species that stood between existence and oblivion. The species too stubborn to die. The species crazy enough to save everyone. If you enjoyed this HFY sci-fi story, don't forget to subscribe for more epic humanity-first adventures, galactic wars, ancient alien mysteries, and cinematic space battles. More legendary HFY stories are coming soon.